Please welcome Pat Donovan, CEO, Water Corporation, for a spotlight on Perth's water security. Water is life.
Good afternoon, everybody. And firstly, thank you, Paula, for the invitation and for the opportunity to engage with so many of you who I think, like me, are committed to building a thriving future for Perth and for WA. So for the next 10 minutes or so, I would like to shine a light on the importance of water in that future, because after all, water is life. Can I start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and I pause and reflect and give my respects to elders past and present. Now, I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and waterways in which Water Corporation operates right across the state, for they have sustainably managed water, country and culture for millennia. And I actually think it's their enduring connection with water that reminds us that this resource is sacred. It's a source of life, culture and connection, and it's woven into rituals, recreation and a sense of place. Which is why water is not just another utility. It's a lot more than pipes and taps. It is the invisible thread that's connecting everything: our health, our economy, our environment and our culture. It's the thread that runs through everything from the glass of water in front of you to the recycled water that we provide to industry in Kwinana, from the hopefully less than 4-minute shower that you all had this morning, to the water that we use for cooling data centres that underpin the future of AI. And yet its foundational role sometimes goes unrecognised. And in Perth, we need the thread to be more, hard to say that, we need the thread to be more visible as we prepare for a population growth of perhaps more than 3.5 million people by 2050. I read some market research recently that said that Australians rank investment in water and wastewater infrastructure only 12th among their priorities. And when you consider the growing and significant pressures that are bearing down on water, I think it's clear that we need to raise water's profile in the public discourse and in our planning. So what better way for us to start that than me being here today on what is National Water Week, no less. And this year's theme is bringing water into focus. So to understand why we need to refocus on water, we need to examine the pressures driving this shift. Pressures that are not unique to Perth, but part of a global story. Starting with the greatest challenge that we face as an industry and indeed as a society, climate change. And the southwest of WA is undoubtedly a global hotspot for a drying climate. In fact, since 1994, we have seen 24% less winter rainfall, and stream flow into our dams has reduced by some 80% since the 1970s. I'm always amazed that when you think back 60 years ago, there was enough rainfall going into our dams to meet Perth's drinking water needs today. But yet this year, on what was undoubtedly, it appeared to be a very wet winter in Perth, our dams received less than 15% of what it used to back then. Our catchments are now so dry that what once required 300 mils of rainfall to start generating stream flow, it now requires 500 mils. So when you think of that, it's twice the amount of rainfall to fill half a glass. That's the reality that we're dealing with at the moment. And at the same time, Perth's population has seen its highest growth levels of any Australian capital city, 3.1% in 2024 alone, and that's certainly driving an increase in water demand as well. To me, what's most alarming is when you look at average household water use, it's hit its highest level in over a decade, and that's reversing a declining trend that we've seen since the mid-2000s. When our current water services model was established back in 1996, Water Corporation inherited a relatively new infrastructure with excess capacity that has been designed in to accommodate future growth. That infrastructure, like all of us in this room, is now aging. It requires attention to maintain and to renew it, but also to build in that additional growth capacity for the future. So I think, as you can see, there are certainly challenges, that they are complex challenges, but by no means insurmountable. And thankfully here in Western Australia, and indeed at Water Corporation, we have a strong track record of leading innovation in water, and I know we will continue to be at the forefront of driving innovation and climate resilience. Water Corporation was the first utility in Australia to implement large-scale seawater desalination back in the early 2000s. and our Kwinana and Binningup plants now supply around half of Perth's drinking water supply. We were one of the first utilities globally to purify recycled water at our Binningup Advanced Water Recycling Plant and use it to replenish groundwater in our aquifers with up to 28 billion litres of water each year. And looking to the future, we are focused on strategic water planning to enable our state's growth, not merely keep pace with it. So we are expanding water and wastewater infrastructure to unlock over 30,000 residential lots across our growth corridors through the government's Housing Enabling Infrastructure Fund. Water will also underpin economic diversification in strategic industrial areas right across the strait, including here in Perth at our western trade coast. And that's why our planners are working today with government and with industry to accelerate the development of the new sources that we will need to satisfy this growing demand. Now, in line with our environmental commitments and with respect for traditional custodians, we have committed to reducing our groundwater use from the Nangara Mound by 30 billion litres by 2028. And to put that in perspective, that's 30 Optus stadiums full of water that we need to replace each and every year. So to help this commitment, we are already constructing Perth's next desalination plant up in Alkimos, which will come online in 2028 and provide 50 billion litres of water each year thereafter. And importantly, it will have net zero greenhouse gas emissions from construction right through to operation. And that's a key part of our ambitious plan to achieve net zero gas emissions across all our operations by 2035. We're also expanding wastewater recycling and reuse schemes statewide, and we plan to almost double the capacity of our existing water recycling plant in Kwinana to meet the growing industrial demand down there and really try to take the pressure off the drinking water supply. Also, we are innovating and investing in smart infrastructure, including acoustic sensing for detecting underground leaks, digital metering, predictive maintenance, and of course we can't forget our latest recruit at Water Corporation, which is our leak detection dog, Piper. These achievements are not just technological, they are human, perhaps even canine. But I do want to give a shout out to our planners, hydrologists, engineers and environmental scientists at Water Corporation who are among the best in the world. It's been their foresight that has positioned WA as a global leader in climate resilient water planning, and I think it's going to be their commitment that will help build a secure water for the future. As we look to Perth in 2050 and we ask the question, what role will water play in a thriving city? I believe the answer will be framed in the choices that we make today. Undoubtedly, desalination will continue to play a key role, and in fact, over the next decade, we will need to double the existing capacity that we have to maintain supplies in Perth. But it's not the silver bullet. Globally, cities like Cape Town, Los Angeles and Singapore have faced acute water stress and responded with bold innovation. Los Angeles Orange County is investing heavily in recycled water, while Singapore's New Water program is a global benchmark for purified recycled water. So we too will need to plan for increased water recycling and reuse as part of our supply mix for the future. And I think particularly when it can be an enabler for emerging potentially water-intensive industries such as green hydrogen, critical minerals, and the future of AI data centres. And in fact, when you think about data centres, just adding a few large-scale ones in Perth would trigger the need for a new desalination plant to be built. So perhaps we should think about locating them close to our existing water recycling facilities instead. While desalination is vital in unlocking our water future because it doesn't rely on rainfall, this does not mean we can become complacent in terms of how we think about and how we use our water. Desalination is by no means a license to waste water, and it will never replace the need to be water-wise. Which brings me back to National Water Week and to the theme, bringing water into focus. I believe we must foster a cultural shift, one that reconnects people emotionally with every precious drop of water that they use, one that empowers communities and industries to become part of the solution. I think Western Australians understand the imperatives to be water-wise more than most. But when you reflect on the fact that much of our recent population growth has stemmed from people much like myself who have come from WA from interstate or overseas, you need to ensure that we are focusing on education and a focus on water-wise behaviours, both in the home and in the workplace. That will become increasingly important. To reinforce this message, you may have seen our recent campaign urging people to break up with their bad water habits. It is underpinned by research revealing that 1 in 5 people are unaware of their sprinkler roster days, while 64% of people don't know that showers should be under 4 minutes. And I can tell you with 3 kids in my household, I can definitely vouch for that statistic. I like to think that being water-wise is a bit like charity. It begins at home, and then it spreads out there, from there like a ripple to schools, to the communities, to business and to industry. So as customers, community members, business leaders, and everybody who's here today, I really want to invite each of you to partner with us at Water Corporation to help build the water-wise culture that we need for the future, but to also help us to build the climate-resilient solutions that together will ensure that we can secure our water future for our current and for future generations. And working together, I know that the foundations that we lay today will sustain us to 2050 and beyond. So look, thank you for listening. I've got a bit of food for thought left on the slide for you to digest over lunch, and hopefully we can start a ripple of a conversation that flows out beyond this room into the community. Thank you so much.